Hello, friends. Um, it's a bit later. I got less makeup on than I did earlier tonight, but that's okay because it's nice to kind of tone it down when it's later in the night. But I still wanted to look, you know, sort of cool and sort of pretty like, for the video. I thought, why not? And I've got this trans flag shirt on as well. This isn't a clothes show offering. I'm used to doing those because I've done that a lot lately. That's not what this is, because this is just a casual thing. But uh, anyway, this is actually a video about the Genderfloren identity because that is a subset of gender fluidity that I recently found myself relating to, and this was about 11 months ago, so almost a year ago. This was last July. Um, I I came out as Genderfloren after I figured out that I'd always I knew that I was not cisgender by the time I was in middle school, but by the time I was in high school, I figured out that I was non-binary. But I also knew that there was a little bit of fluidity to my gender, where sometimes I would feel more femme, sometimes I would feel more masc, and it was noticeable enough that it would affect how dysphoric I was in a given moment, or how my dysphoria would manifest. And there were also times where I felt like, a combination of both, or no gender at all, or just kind of, you know, indifferent about gender and like I don't really care how I'm gendered because it doesn't matter. But unfortunately that wasn't always the case, and sometimes I would feel very dysphoric for whatever reason and wanting to be gendered in this way or that. And I would say typically now it's like in the communities that I'm in, I'm not that dysphoric because people mostly know that I'm out, and they know I'm non-binary, and they seem to like kind of just understand me. But in certain contexts I get very dysphoric because I don't really care about pronouns, but you have to know what a pronoun is, okay? A pronoun is he, she, they, it, and others. There's other pronouns, but these are the gendered pronouns that people typically think of when they think of pronouns. And then there's other new pronouns like neo-pronouns, xenopronouns. These are pronouns that are made for um more like I guess more like new genders, because people have gotten kind of creative with their unique gender experiences now that the culture has become more accepting of people being out and exploring their gender experience, their internal sense of self. Like that's what this boils down to, because I know it's hard to like imagine the abstract notions, but it's like it's just how you imagine yourself, how you want to present, how you'd like to be referred to as. So, pronouns, I'll go back to this. Pronouns are different from nouns, because nouns can be gendered as well. So if you call someone girl, lady, man, bro, dude, guy, um, ma'am, sir, things like these. Well, ma'am and sir aren't nouns, but those are honorifics. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, like many different things can be gendered in language, not just he, she, they, it, ze, them, fey, fair type stuff. Those are the neo-pronouns. Those are some neo-pronouns and xenopronouns that they have that some people use that help them like relate to help like relate back to their sense of self, because for some people their sense of self can be very abstract and unique, and I think that's special, and I think that's beautiful. So this kind of ties into my relationship with gender. I would say that my fluidity mostly is regarding elements of femininity and masculinity without being wholly one or the other at any given moment. Wholly, not like holy like Jesus, but holy with a W, like holistically. It's not completely one or the other. It's like my gender is its own thing, and it kind of shifts a little bit, but it's never like I'm never in a binary state of gender. That's why they them is always appropriate for me, but I also accept just about any other pronoun in a given moment. Like I'm much more sensitive to gendered noun terms like calling me uh calling me a boy or a girl is that's something that is more like prone to a lot of specificity. Like you might not be able to tell whether or not I would be okay with it in a given moment unless I told you, because even the way I present myself is not always reflective of my internal sense of self. Although it is always, it's always like relating to being an envy, because that's always a constant with me. So Genderfloren is a fluid gender identity in which one can shift between any genders except the binary genders. Genderfloren individuals can be fluid between any range of genders, such as neutral genders, unaligned genders, xenogenders, allibinary genders, and even aspect-aligned genders, generally speaking. For example, Genderfloren has its own subsets: genderflor, genderflorent, genderfloretin, gendervey, and linearia gender. Many of these have their own subsets too. So I will just say, I don't know what all those terms mean. Like, I'm not really this deep into it. Some of these are hyper specific, and I say that not to discredit the validity or true, real human experiences that these terms represent, but to acknowledge that this is not something that is well known to most people, I would say. It's just it's still real, it's still valid, but it's like very specific, and not in the common vocabulary of your everyday person. So I'm going to read a little bit more. The first the first apparent mention of Genderfloren is on Tumblr user Gender Resources April 2020 Gender Jargon List. Oh boy. I hope it wasn't. I hope this isn't one of those parody genders, because, well, it's not a parody to me. This is really how I feel. Later on July 5th, 2020, Discord user Kira-chan created the flag and posted it on the LGBT a plus Wiki Discord server. An alternative Genderfloren flag was made by bits of puzzle pieces on the 2nd of December 2021. It was meant to reflect the original flag while also having its own uniqueness, so it can be better recognized when shown next to the Genderflor flag. Well, okay, so yeah, I will just acknowledge, to go back to all of this. Yeah, there's xenogenders, which are hard to understand with the human mind. That's the one that I remember. I remember that's what that one means. There's allibinary genders. The allibinary system is a system of terms used to describe the difference of a non-binary relationship compared to the relationships of those in the gender binary. Well, I think that's interesting, but I've read on that before and I don't really know how to describe it too well. So this is all things I'm reading from the Gender Wiki. That's why I've sometimes referred to this as the gender fandom before, because there's the gender.fandom.com website, and there's a lot of interesting information on here you can learn about if you're in a state where you don't quite know, if you're questioning or you want to learn about just the way that people are. Like, if you just want to learn some shit, that's fun. You know. Um, I think it's really interesting. Some people have very, very unique experiences within themselves, Like, I have a very rich imagination, inner mind experience. Like, I have strong emotions, I have a strong inner, mind's eye where I can see images very clearly. My senses are very, very active in my imagination. So that's why I think my sense of self is so varied and so noticeable, because I have that feature within my imagination where it's very vivid and kind of hard to ignore at times. Like, it's sort of distracting almost, because it's so overactive. And that can be good for art, but it can also be hard to, like, even focus enough to create stuff sometimes, because I'm just preoccupied with my thoughts. They're not always, like, smart or mind-blowing or anything. They're just kind of, like, all kinds of stuff, including unpleasant things, to be honest with you. Um, that's just the fact of my life, but still, kind of cool stuff, too. I think about all kinds of stuff. Anyway, allobinary, yeah, we just went through that one. Aspect aligned genders. Okay, the aspect-aligned gender spectrum is a system of terms to describe genders that feel different aspects in nature. Other names for this system are gin genders, genders in nature genders, or ingenders. Yeah, I don't really know about these. Um, I've kind of gone through these before, but not really understood. If someone could explain it to me in person, that would be a lot easier. But I don't feel like reading all the complicated details because these weren't really something that I was in that I knew about. Like, yeah, like I don't really understand these more specific labels and stuff. I just know because someone said in the comments like, um, can a genderfloren person be fluid between demi boy and demi girl? Yes, they can. Multiple people. Sorry, I'm reading and it's like hard for me to focus and talk at the same time. But multiple people have mentioned having demi boy experiences and demi girl experiences at times, and I've had those experiences before. I've gone see demi boy and demi girl is when you're part uh you experience partial mask or femme energy, but there's also like a level of something else, some other bit of something, like some other kind of gender mixed in there, like non-binariness with like an androgynous component, or like a lack of gender, or maybe like they're contradictory, like maybe there's a demi boy aspect and a demi girl aspect, and they're both kind of mixed in there. That could be seen as something like bigender, because some people are that they have that where they're like male and female at the same time. So it's kind of like that. But I don't know, like there's different possibilities with the demi-genders, but they are related to the binary genders. Like it's like being partially a binary gender, but also something else that is not binary. And that's why it fits in with the genderfloren gender experience, because you're always somewhere on the NB spectrum, but there's just sometimes like other things going on that can shift, other aspects of your identity that can shift in a sort of gendered context, you know? And that's the best way to describe it, and that can affect how you want to present yourself, or how you want to come across in your social life, or just your even in your mind's eye. It can change. That's how it is for me. My I can see myself in my head, and I know, like, I just feel differently at different times, and if I draw myself, the way I draw myself changes from time to time, but I haven't drawn myself in a while. But also the way I photograph myself online, that changes too, like everything does. So, it's kind of like that when I take photos and videos. I kind of just come off in different ways depending on it. So, yeah, it's interesting, I guess. I think everybody has a non constant sense of self. Like their sense of self does change from time to time. So I guess this is just, not all that. I don't think it's really all that unusual, because if I explain it, in a way that hopefully you can understand, without using too many of these big complicated words, because I mean, not to discredit them, like I said, these are good words that are useful, but I don't fully understand them when I read it. Like there's a lot of links you got to click on and read all that, and I don't necessarily want to waste your time, because my gender experience doesn't include lots of these micro labels. Like xenogender doesn't really apply to me. My genders are pretty, I think, in my humble opinion, they're not too hard to understand with the human mind, like xenogenders, their whole concept is, I mean, look at it real quick. Xenogender is a non-binary identity and umbrella term in which one's gender goes beyond the human understandings of gender, i.e., concepts such as femininity, masculinity, neutrality, androgyny, agren, agrenity, and authority, oh god, agenrity and otherinity, and can be best described by other methods of gender categorization. This includes genders that are related to animals, plants, or other things that are not traditionally a gender. They are often used by the neurodivergent community, people with ADHD, autism, OCD, etc., but the term is not exclusive. Yeah, like, I guess it's just a matter of understanding different aspects of the neurodivergent mind. Like, I know from watching Ashton Daniels videos, they are studying psychology in college, and they are also a non-binary trans man, a demi-boy, or demi-guy, in other words. So, he, talked about how, oh, and he's also autistic. He has autism. And I think he also shared that he was diagnosed with OCD, but thinks that it's a sort of misdiagnosis and that his OCD symptoms were actually more just related to autism. So that's a personal thing about him, and but he did share it on the channel and everything, so it's not like, secret or anything. But anyway, Ashton Daniels. So he, because of all those things, he has a very learned experience and educated experience to talk about this, and he confirms that neurodivergence can affect your relationship with gender, your perception of yourself in a gendered context. So I think that's pretty believable. I think that makes sense. I mean, it's not really discrediting the experience of trans people. I know that that can seem like a very I mean, it's like, on one hand, it could seem to the neurodivergent trans folks that, like, you're discrediting them because you're saying it's like a manifestation of an illness or disability, and my response to that is, really, who cares? Like, you are who you say you are, no matter what. Even if there's a correlation there, it doesn't really matter. Like, and on the other hand, people who don't have any kind of neurodivergent condition of any kind, like, neurotypical people, if they, are trans, they might feel kind of offended or, like, dismissed if I were to say that, neurodivergence has a correlation with, um, a unique gender identity or gendered perception of self. Like, they would they would probably feel like they were left out as well. Like, they would feel like, well, if we're not neurodivergent, do we not count? Like, no, I think you still do. Like, everybody who says, like, at the end of the day, who you say you are is who you are. Like, you know yourself better than anybody else. Why, what could possibly change that? You are who you say you are. You're real. You're you, You know who you are. And if you don't, that's okay. It's okay to change it. It doesn't mean that anybody else can say what you're feeling in a given moment, who you know yourself to be, who you want to be, who you want to live as. Nobody else can tell you how to live. And everybody should respect you for who you claim to be in this world, in every way. Anyway, and that does apply to xenogenders. I respect xenogenders. I just don't think that I experienced that level of like, gender abstraction, um if that's a good term. I don't know if that's a good term. I'm trying to say that, like, these things seem abstract and truly hard to understand, I guess, in my human mind, but I do think that neurodivergent people do have human minds. They're just a bit different. So if there is one criticism I could make, if I could make just a gentle, light criticism, I would say humans did come up with those concepts, and I just want to acknowledge that. Like, it might be difficult, but I guess that's the thing. They don't say it's impossible, just difficult. So I will lend the the xenogender people their credit where credit is due. Not exclusively um, it's not exclusive to neurodivergent people. That was mentioned in the last paragraph, so I'll acknowledge that. Um, there's also Genderflore. Um, Genderflore doesn't even encompass masculine aligned genders or feminine aligned genders, and that's why I don't identify as genderflore, because I do have gender experiences that are aligned with male or female, but just not exactly the same. There's other versions too, but I haven't looked at those. Those seem to be even more obscure. So I think that's where I'm going to cut it off here, but there's a lot more research that you can do if you're curious about this kind of thing. Um, I made my own edit of the Genderfloren flag, which I will use as the thumbnail of this video. Um, so, that's all. It's a type of gender fluidity. It means that I'm always somewhere on the non-binary spectrum, so it's always appropriate to use they, them for me. However, I also use she, he, and it pronouns. I'm comfortable with all of those, and you can use those for me whenever you want, because I don't really care. That's the main thing you need to know. And when it comes to gendered terms for me, it's usually not like what terms of like non-pronouns, so like nouns and honorifics, like probably try to avoid more gendered terminology in that regard, because that's not usually comfortable for me. So, yeah, that's all I had to say. I hope that you are doing well, and I hope you have a nice day. I just wanted to educate people since it is Pride Month, and now's a good time. And it's been almost a year since I came out as Genderfloren, which is kind of crazy because it seems like not that long ago, really. But yep, that's all. I'll catch you on the flippity flop, and I hope you have a nice day. Also, I painted my nails. They look messy, so messy, because I just painted them. I just painted them before I started the video, so yeah, they look kind of awful, sorry, but there's like black and bluish, purplish, like a sort of, yeah, they've got like sparkles as well, like a kind of reddish sparkle on the top. Yeah, pretty crusty looking, but I think after a little bit of time has passed, they'll kind of like even out. This is always how it goes. I paint them, they look crusty for like an hour or two, and then like the excess on the skin just peels off on its own. It's kind of hard for me to do it with my own fingernails because then the tips chip off, and that's not what you want. So you just gotta wait it out. You just gotta wait it out. Sometimes you just gotta wait it out. Alright? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Just gotta wait it out. Anyway, but you don't have to wait for the video to end anymore. I will leave now. Goodbye.